Welcome to Coaching to Integration, the art and science of transformational coaching approaches and ICF Core Competencies with Laurel Elders, Master Certified Coach and ICF Trained Mentor Coach, bringing 20 years of practice to your inbox.
Hi everyone, welcome to lesson number 8. We're going to be moving from foundations now into building and refining and really honing very specific coaching skills. So today's lesson is going to be all about agenda setting. And agenda setting, I have found, just being a mentor coach to be something that is easily overlooked. And I wonder if it's a little bit about we as coaches kind of get excited about the coaching and sometimes we want to just dive right in. However, what can happen if we skip over parts of the agenda setting is that we accidentally don't set the session up for success. So really learning how to approach the agenda from a really integrative, whole person, whole experience perspective can be so empowering. So let's dive in. Okay, so for the first part of this video, we're going to be looking at the PCC Markers 3.1 and 3.2. In the deeper dive, we're going to be diving into 3.3 and 3.4. So for those of you that don't have the PCC Markers memorized yet, 3.1, let's start there. Coach partners with the client to identify or reconfirm what the client wants to accomplish in this session. So this is the what. The what are we focusing on? 3.2, coach partners with the client to define or reconfirm measures of success for what the client wants to accomplish in the session. So this is the takeaway, the goal, the target for that session. One thing that we look for, especially at the PCC level, is really a fuller exploration of the coaching agenda. And I love to say full exploration leads to future elevation. And a really well-rounded agenda actually sets the session up for greater success and much more transformation. So for those of you who are interested in transformational coaching, pay attention to how you're setting up the agenda. It can make a world of a difference. I also love to invite in the perspective that when we're in agenda setting, we're a little bit more like a detective where we're collecting all the evidence and the context and the details before we start coaching. So I see some coaches make the mistake of getting excited or seeing like, oh, that seems like an avenue to go down. And then they start coaching before all the data's in, all the information's collected that can help set it up for success. So specifically, there's two foundational coaching markers or skills that we want to apply, and that's 3.1 and 3.2. What are we working on and what are we working towards? 3.3 and 3.4 then come in to round it out. So they definitely have their place. And we'll be looking at that next. But let's just start with 3.1 and 3.2. So it's one thing for the agenda to seem clear, and it's another thing to clarify. And let's look at what that means. So if something is unclear, it could be very vague, like the client saying, I'd like to get your support. Okay. Clear could be the client saying, I'd like to work on getting support from you today around my new management position. So it's clearer. And then as a coach, we can clarify. So what does support from me look like for you today around the new position? So that's the first thing, is sometimes coaches hear the client, assume they understand, and move on. Resist that urge. Really clarify, because even if you know someone well, they might have a different perspective on what their meaning is when they're wanting support or they're working on management. So exploring what exactly are they meaning helps to clarify, and that's the coach's role, is to clarify. And also notice that support is not a takeaway. So if the coach says, oh, the client has said the agenda, let's move on, there's a key mistake is being made. The takeaway is not clear. Support is a process to get the client their takeaway. So a clear takeaway might be a strategy, or looking at the top fear, or coming up with their management philosophy. So 3.2 is all about inviting the client to get really clear. What's the goal? What's the target? Where are we heading? And what I see is that when coaches skip 3.2, sometimes the session sounds circular. It seems like, it's not clear where we're going. So if there's not a clear stopping point, that can confuse the direction of the session, and sometimes it can go in circles. So if you're just starting out as a coach and honing the skill of really exploring the agenda and setting a really clear agenda, one thing that can help is to not assume that the topic is the takeaway, and get a measurable success in place and reflect it back. This is a perfect time for reflection. Reflect back what you've heard to make sure you're on the same page. All right, so just to recap, don't assume, clarify, and ensure that you have an actual measurable target, and resist moving into coaching before those are clarified. And also, if you're moving into transformational coaching and you're working as a professional coach, check out the deeper dive, because we're going to go into the importance of 3.3 and 3.4, both of which are really key for setting up sessions for transformational coaching. Stay tuned.